It's Monday, so you know we had some heavy college football topics to overreact to. Big 12 partnering with the company for naming rights to potentially become the All-State 12. What? It's magazine season, so we definitely going to overreact to some rankings. And lately, the community tab has been going crazy. If you not plugged into the community tab, I have no clue what you are doing. Also, let's do some rapid fire one-liners, community tab style. It's the only way to do it. Only on Overreaction Monday. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Today I am the governor of college football. Yes, sir. The mayor of college football, aka Downtown Nino Brown. Yes, sir. Welcome to another marvelous episode of Overreaction Monday. I am the governor of college football, and with me is a guy that pulls a lot of strings behind the scenes. My guy Dennis Noel, also known but better known as D Now. D Now, happy to have you on this episode. We are jam-packed, and I know you're excited to get to a lot of these questions. Let's start with community tab one-liners. Please make sure y'all tapped into that community tab. What quarterback in the G5 will have the best season?
Yeah, so this one kind of started me going down the rabbit hole for tonight. So I'm initially going to throw out names like Jacob Zeno with UAB. I don't think he gets enough love. Then you got Byron Brown at USF, one of two quarterbacks to throw for 3,000 yards in the air, 800 yards on the ground. The other being Jaden Daniels, who won the Heisman. Then we got one of CFB Nation's favorite quarterbacks. You got Salter there in Liberty. But me personally, I'm going to have to go with Seth Hennigan from Memphis. He has a 67% completion percentage. He can do it both through the air, on the ground. He had over 3,900 yards in the air with 32 touchdowns, and 300 yards on the ground with 5 touchdowns. And looking at the roster that's coming back, he's got his 2 stud wide receivers returning, Rock Taylor, Demir Blank. I'm going to mess this up. Blankumsi, who combined for over 2,000 yards together. So I think with the kind of offense they run, he is in the best position to not miss a beat.
I think Seth Hennigan is a great choice. Me and I think it was just last week we were looking at ESPN did a tier list of quarterback, and he was pretty high up there for the tier list. So I don't think that's a wrong choice. I think the metric or kind of the algorithm for postseason awards kind of have always been team success plus individual success. There's some awards where you kind of ignore the team success, like we seen Jerry West, the late great, God bless the dead Jerry West, won an MVP, the only person ever do it as a losing effort. But if Memphis is able to be, one of those teams we think that they can be this year, it's certainly a reason for him to be one of the best quarterbacks in the G5. I am definitely going with Caden Salter. The hat I have on is a Conference USA Championship hat. I've seen him play too many times, and the people who know that I go to a lot of Liberty games would beat me up if I didn't say him. Which coach in college football has the hottest seat? This had the community tab going crazy.
Yeah, so for me personally, there's 2 obvious candidates, so I'm going to knock those out right away. You got Billy Napier with his high level of recruiting. The results just haven't been there. Next, You got Sam Pittman in Arkansas, and he's there because I'm surprised he still has a job. So with that being said, unless he makes the playoffs, I think he's gone as well. So now I'm going to switch to start throwing out some bigger names that I feel may be on the hot seat. And first, I'm going with Dave Aranda from Baylor.
That's a good one.
When he took over Waco, he was handed a team that was on the rise. All he had to do was not mess up, and so far he's done nothing but mess up. 5 years, he's got a 23-25 record, including 3-9 last year. So again, he's another one somehow with the big dogs being out of the Big 12. If he can sneak into the playoffs, I think he may survive another year. Otherwise, he's gone. Next, I got Neil Brown in West Virginia. He's kind of on the same playing field as Aranda and Baylor. Outside of last year, he's got a 22-25 record. His recruiting hasn't been top tier like they had hoped. And then last year he ended up going 9-4, so that kind of set the bar high for going into this year. And if he can't live up to potentially 10-3 or maybe even another 9-4 record, I can see them potentially moving on from him. And then finally, my big dog, it's Ryan Day. I know people are going to be like, "There's no shot." He's 58-6, I think, as his time head coach. Um, but what's he got for it? A, he hasn't won a national championship. He's lost to Michigan 4 years in a row. Or if he does lose again this year, it'll be
Yeah,
4 years.
it would be
Sorry.
4 years. Yeah.
And knowing how prideful Ohio State fans are, they could be, "What have you done for me lately?" Sort of. Yes, he brings in all these recruits, but like I said, no championships. So maybe the seat might be a little warm and they start looking elsewhere.
I think the Ryan Day discussion is an interesting one. When they lost back in 2022 to Michigan, what was trending on Twitter? Frying Ryan Day. When they lost in 2023 to Coach Sharon Moore in Michigan, what again was trending on Twitter? Frying Ryan Day. I think Ryan Day has done a lot of great things in the offseason. They've gotten better. He's always been able to recruit. We can't take that away from him. They got better via the portal, got arguably one of the best players on the defensive side of the ball, and Caleb Downs to already go with a sturdy secondary already. They should be able to rush the passer this year. They should be able to run the rock. Kenshawn Junkins in the portal. Also, it's going to be kind of interesting to see this Julian Singh, Aaron Nolan thing down the future, and I hope it doesn't get as bad to where Will Howard is performing and one of them got to jump in to that driver's seat now. That's the scary part. I think one of the most important things that he done this offseason, and one of those things that I think kind of went overlooked, but getting Chip Kelly as an offensive coordinator, Chip Kelly did a terrible job. He wanted no parts of head coaching in this new era. He did a terrible job for recruiting with UCLA. How do they, somewhere, mid-20s, I think even peaked in the teens for recruiting, and this year they're like at 60 as far as the recruiting class is concerned. He gave up. Like, that's essentially what he did. Still put out a pretty decent team last year, but to have that knowledge, somebody that Ryan Day can lean into, somebody that's been there and done that, not only at this level, he's been to a national championship at this level, also coaching the NFL as well. So to be able to lean into Jim Knowles and all the experience he has as a defensive coordinator, being able to lean into Chip Kelly, and the roster, the construction of the roster had one of the best constructed rosters in the sport. If things go right, they should make the playoff, but the playoff isn't the expectation. They need to win at least one or two playoff games, I think, for people to be a little bit happy, and they have to beat Michigan. This Michigan team is returning 53% of its production, and Michigan has a stronger schedule than it's been having. We're not sure what they're going to be doing at quarterback this year, but I think Michigan is going to be a much better team than people anticipate. But if he doesn't beat Michigan this year and there isn't a deep playoff run, I think you might be one of the first to say, hey, his time may be coming for sure. And it may be time for him to leave here and go back to the NFL.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. I didn't expect that one. I like that one a lot, D now. So what P4 quarterback has the best chance to win the Heisman? And of course we say quarterback because it's kind of been a quarterback dominated award as of recent. So who you got?
So I know my hot takes had originally came out with Shador winning it.
Yeah.
I'm
But
still gonna ride that.
those are like deep dives, like spicy takes. Like, it's not wrong with having like a dark horse or nothing like that. But you can also have a dark horse and still have a personal favorite at the same time.
Right. But if I had to pick today, it's a 2-horse race in my mind. With those being Carson Beck, Jackson Dart.
Whoa, I like it.
Beck led the Dogs last year, 3,900 yards, 24 touchdowns. He had 72 completion percentage. With the additions of Ben Yorosik, London Humphreys, Colby Young to that already fine-tuned offense, I'm expecting the yards to go up. I'm expecting to go over 30 yards or 30 touchdowns on the year.
Agreed.
His completion percentage may drop just for slinging it a little bit more, but I mean, I'm still expecting it to be mid to upper high 60s, which is still fabulous. And then with Dart, it just seemed everything seemed to click last year. Finally, I know it took 3 years, but he finished with over 3,300 yards, 23 touchdowns, and if I had to pick between these two, I'm gonna go with Dart. And that's solely because Lane Kiffin. The guy is one of the most elite offensive minds when it comes to coaching. He can draw up different formations, plays XYZ to put Jackson in a position to up his numbers. And then he's a phenomenal recruiter. So you got studs at every position on the field to help him out. And with that being said, I think this could be the year where we see Jackson closer to 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns. And I mean, you know how I feel. They're my favorite this year to probably win the whole thing.
I think me, you, and Nino, and I think I'll probably never say this again because we all never really all fully agree. But this might be the year that we all like. We're looking at Ole Miss and like, you seeing what I'm saying? I think what they were able to do in a portal, arguably one of the best defensive lines in the nation, it's going to all be in Pete Golding hands because we seen him drop the ball before during
Yeah.
his tenure at Bama. So hopefully he's been able to learn from that. And they should be able to rush the passer and put the ball in Jackson Dart hands a little bit more. I got one for you. Dylan Gabriel, it hit me. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I don't know when it was, maybe when I was in LA. It hit me. I'm like, shout out to Jeff Levy and what he was able to do as offensive coordinator for Oklahoma Sooners last year. I think he's even in a more friendlier offense than he was in Norman. You look at the weapons he have on the outside with Tez Johnson, with Evan Stewart. You think about what they were able to do with Bo Nix. A lot of people remember Bo Nix now. A lot of people don't remember Bo Nix from Auburn when Mike Bobo was the offensive coordinator and things just wasn't right there. I think that Bo Nix is definitely a better scrambler, but Dylan Gabriel showed he put the Sooners on his back last year in that game in the Red River rivalry. And he rushed for 114 yards. And I think he may be able to up his yardage. I think he had almost close to 400 yards rushing last year. I think he'll be able to up that. I think he went for 30 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I think he'll be able to up that. Probably somewhere around similar offensive line. Oregon is just removed from the Joe Moore Award a couple seasons ago. I think there's a case for him, and he's somebody I've been rooting for since his UCF days. Somebody I've always liked. I remember some of the discussions that we were having with like Boomer and Nino when they was talking about the Jackson Arnold kid, and I was like, I don't know. I think Dylan Gabriel, that's my guy. I think he's gonna be able to do his thing. So he's somebody that I'm keeping my eye on. And right now, my favorite. Still, we have media days. We get a lot of intel there. Still have fall camp. So that may change by the end of fall camp, but I don't think it'll change. I think Dylan Gabriel is my favorite to win the Heisman this year. Another great. But I love your Jackson Dart pick. Because like I said, we're all aligned with Ole Miss. We all believe in Ole Miss. Kenshaw Junkins or Travion Henderson had more yards this season in Columbus for the Buckeyes?
So this one took me a little bit to really feel it out. So my initial thought was Travion solely because of his experience with the program, Judkins being the transfer in. But with the new OC, Chip Kelly, I don't think that really matters anymore. But with that being said, I'm going to go with Judkins getting more carries because Henderson has been injured the last couple of years. You don't know his durability. He had a pretty nasty foot break a couple of years ago. But my caveat to that is, while I think Judkins does get more carries, I don't believe it'll be a substantial amount more. For reference, Ohio State likes to use multiple running backs. In 2022, they had 3 backs go over 100 carries for the season. So my prediction is probably going to be more a line of like 160, maybe 170 to like 120. So it would maybe just be like 40-ish, maybe 50 on the high end, more carries.
I think that's a great take. Like you said with Ohio State and Chip Kelly, we've seen him before back in Oregon when he had Kenyon Barner and LaMichael James. LaMichael James was certainly the stud, but he wasn't afraid to put, to spell LaMichael James, put Kenyon Barner in the game, and Kenyon Barner was able to make plays out of the backfield. So really, I think it's whoever has the hot hand. But there are some things that Kenshawn Junkins did while at Ole Miss he cannot do at Ohio State because they'll tell him to kick rocks. We know, allegedly, I said allegedly, ladies and gentlemen, I said allegedly, that he held out a game or two for more NIL money. Allegedly, he was uncomfortable with that. So hopefully he has the right attitude. The Junkins family is a friend of the network. They actually follow us on Twitter, so shout out for them. So that's why I like to say allegedly. He won't be able to do that in Columbus, but hopefully things have worked out. They got him plenty of NIL money. But this is going to be one of the best running back tandems kind of a pop quiz. We're gonna go off the script a little bit. What's your running back backfield do you like better, and is it by a large margin? Do you like Ohio State's running back room better? Or do you like Penn State's running back room better?
Oh man, put me on the spot here.
Yeah, I
Um,
did.
I would have to go with Ohio State's, um, solely because both backs there can do
Mm-hmm,
it all.
mm-hmm,
As of right now, yes, you see Allen starting to get more carries.
yeah,
Um, but initially, he was coming in as the receiving back, where they always pulled Singleton out to put Allen in on pass plays. You don't really see Singleton catching it as much, and that is why I'm going to give Ohio State
you will give
the
Ohio
edge
State the
there.
edge. It's kind of weird if you look at the trajectory. Uh, Nick Singleton and Trevion Henderson both had outstanding freshman seasons, and then kind of had like that sophomore slump. So I'm interested to see what Nick Singleton is able to do in his junior year versus what Trevion Henderson was able to do last year in his junior year. Final question for the community tab one-liners. D, now you're killing this. Who will lead the Oregon Ducks wide receiver room? Evan Stewart or Tez Johnson? This is billboard type of question. I have no clue. I don't know. I struggle. It's day to day for me.
Yeah, so shout out to our guy Nino because he got me on
Mm-hmm,
the Tez bandwagon last
mm-hmm,
season.
mm-hmm,
But this is really tough because Stewart's coming off that injury, just like
mm-hmm,
Henderson. But I will say this is probably the best 1-2 punch Oregon has had
mm-hmm.
since 2014 when they had Huff and Addison. Um, but I think I'm gonna go with Stewart just off of how shifty he is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you could throw a 2 yard cross to him and he could take it 80 yards, making multiple people um, miss. And with that being said, the higher chance of making house calls, whether it's underneath or even the separation, I think he can get a little bit more separation on deep balls. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to have to go with Stewart. But either way, if I'm proven wrong here,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Tez Johnson is a guy. So I this is one where I would be happy to be proved wrong.
Right, right. I feel like there's no wrong answer either way. I feel like there's you can both ways can be argued for sure. Let's switch gears a little bit. I've been a fan of the moves of Brett Yormark, and it's documented that I've been a huge fan of Brett Yormark has made as commissioner of Big 12. I thought during that kind of a stalemate time period where we saw that SEC and Big Ten were being really aggressive, where George Clearcloth, as former commissioner of the Pac-12, kind of was waiting on a media rights deal that never happened, almost like waiting for Godot. It was never going to happen. Where Brett Yormark was like, okay, we just lost two of the top 3 or 4 highest grossing teams in the country and all across all sports, especially in college football. What can I do? I'm going to go take a few pieces from the AAC. I'm going to try to grab a few pieces from the Pac-12, and I feel like he really got active. So there has been news that has released, and it's rumored that the Big 12 is going to be partnering with a company for naming rights, right? And I'm sure you've seen some of the hilarious trolling on Twitter with some of the names, but Allstate is seeming to be leading the way for it to be changing from the Big 12 to the All-State Conference. Now, D, now I don't have an issue with it as much as other people have. Listen, these schools aren't getting as much money as a school in the SEC or a school in the Big Ten, and both of those conferences are still being active in recruitment. They're still being active. So, in order to supplement the balance or kind of the parity in pay, you have to be able to put more monies in their pocket some way, some shape, some form. So, how do you feel about this? And if you remember, what's the funniest name that you've seen on the internet?
Oh, geez, I could. I mean, there were so many that was thrown out
Mm-hmm,
there. Um, so initial thought is if it gets them more money, let them
mm-hmm,
do their thing. But I feel like it kind of falls under Pittsburgh Steelers Stadium sort of thing.
mm-hmm.
Whatever it's called now, no one cares. It's
Right,
always going to be Heinz Field.
right,
So it
right,
could be the YouTube 12 or whatever. It's still
right.
going to be known as the Big 12.
The Big
So,
12
I
for
mean,
sure.
if they got to do it to help the competitive balanceness, like NIL money or
Mm-hmm.
whatever they got to do, then I'm all for it. But it's always going to be the Big 12.
For sure. I like I said, I like the move. It's kind of similar to you remember when the NBA went with the like logos on the jerseys and stuff
Yeah.
like that. However, you can bring in more money, but still, I love Twitter. The internet is undefeated. I love the fact that they trolled and all of the names that they came up with. But I think this is a great move for Brett Yormark. I know some people was questioning his ability to lead. I think he's done a phenomenal job as commissioner of the Big 12. And I think some people will be surprised where I have him at in my commissioner rankings for sure. I think Greg Sankey is the cream of the crop, but Brett Yormark is second for me, to be
Oh,
quite frank. So
okay.
I like what he's done. So it's magazine season. Dina, I think you know already. I'm going magazine crazy. I think I sent you an email not too long ago. Can't say what that
Yep.
email contained, but I sent you an email not too long ago. Already got Phil Steele's digital mag, and I got an email today that said that the physical one was delivered today. I got Athlon Sports while I was out LA. Got to go pick up Lindy's tomorrow after I get off from work. And then I'm going to give everybody a tidbit here. Not too many people know what my second favorite mag is. Phil Steele is my favorite, but my second favorite one is Dog Stats, and it's a digital one. So when I get a copy of that, it'll end up in your email as well.
All right.
D now. So let's talk about Athlon Sports Magazine. I read that while on an airplane, and I saw something that was interesting. I was like, yeah, me and my guy D now got to talk about this tomorrow. So they did their 12-team playoff prediction, and we're going to go round by round and we'll break it down what we see and try not to step over anything. So first round by the teams that got the automatic bids because they won a conference. Georgia is the SEC conference champ. Ohio State is the Big Ten conference champ. Interesting. Florida State is the ACC conference champ. And Utah end up winning the Big 12 according to Athlon Sports. They get the automatic buys. We'll see those teams in round two. So the first round games, keep in mind, D now, all of these first round games are on campus. We got number 9 Michigan at Alabama. That's a rematch of what we seen in this past year's college football playoff. Got number 12 Liberty at number 5 Oregon. We seen that at the VBRO Fiesta Bowl. We were credentialed for that last year. Not sure if I want to see it again. Number 11, Notre Dame at number 6, Texas. I think that would be a really sneaky good game. Number 10, Penn State, and number 7, Ole Miss. We've seen that this past season as well. Ole Miss went crazy in that game. So, how you like these first round matchups and anything that you see so far that is like something that you like or something that you dislike?
All right. So I'm going to start with the first round on campus games.
Okay.
First thing I noticed, I don't think Bama makes it.
Okay.
I think they kind of take a little bit of a stumble this year. Uh,
Who would you like in their place?
see, that's the tough part.
Yeah.
I'll come back to that while
Okay.
I kind of stew on it. Liberty, Oregon, I'm with you. I don't want to see
Mhm.
that again. As much as
Mhm.
we rooted for Liberty last year, uh, they weren't any match for Oregon.
Mhm.
Um, that right there would probably be my pick. Would be Memphis because I
Okay.
see them winning the AAC. Notre Dame, Texas. I love that matchup. I don't think, as much as I love it, I don't think it would be a very competitive game though. Um, I would
You
see
don't?
Texas. No, I don't. I'm
Hmm.
not high on Riley Leonard. Um,
Even with Mike Denbrook as his offensive coordinator?
yeah, no, it's a durability issue for me,
No, I
honestly.
agree with you. I agree with you
Um,
there.
and I think Texas just has too many dogs up front for the kind of offense that Notre Dame would run.
Mm,
Uh, Penn State, Ole Miss, again, I don't really want to see this matchup, but Ole Miss would run away with this in my opinion. Now, so for the automatic bids, uh, I don't hate Georgia. I don't hate Ohio State.
mm,
Florida State, I don't think wins the A or ACC. I
mm.
would have to go with Miami. That's my pick.
Oh, that's spicy.
Um, and then Big 12, I don't hate the Utah pick.
Mm,
Um, my initial thought was Arizona, but with the coaching change, that would be why I'm okay with Utah. Uh,
mm,
if Arizona does end up winning, I would probably replace Alabama with Utah uh,
mm,
as the number 8. Um, I think, and then just looking at overall rankings, I think Ole Miss is too low. Uh, Oregon may even be too low.
mm.
Um, and if I had to replace Penn State with another school, I'm going to sound like a homer, but I think Iowa may be able to sneak in. They only play Ohio State on the road. That's really their main tough
Uh,
uh, schedule game. And with that being said, they could be like last year, sneaky 10-2. I'm not saying they would win against Ole Miss or anything like that, but they may be my sneaky.
I think why you need to give yourself more credit. 79% return in production for Kirk Ferentz, 22 SP plus rank, 32 recruiting nationally. But Iowa is known for the development of players versus it's not the name, it's how they grow that name when they get them. And then you look at their strength of schedule, 44th strength of schedule,
Yeah.
not quite middle of the road, but that's not too shabby. I don't
And
think that's
to
a bad pick at
answer
all.
Nino's question, that's also my sneakiest running back room. They got Johnson there, they got Patterson there. You could honestly have 2,000 plus rushing yards between the two.
Uh,
Maybe I want to say maybe like fourth or fifth time in school history that you could have uh, two 1,000 yard rushers with the kind of offense, especially if they don't have as strong of a passing game. I see Moon, yeah, offense, but I was never really throwing the ball even when we had an offense.
no.
It's always been a run game.
Yeah, it has been, but I think the disrespect that for our what Kirk Ferentz has been able to do since he's been there, they've always competed and they're always going to compete. So saying I will be in the college football playoff isn't as far fetched as some people think, and they're going to surprise some teams this year. The team for me is Mizzou. Mizzou is a team that's not in there. It should be in there. There is no such thing as an easy schedule in the Big Ten, but they have, I'm sorry, in the SEC, but they have the easiest at the 29th strength of schedule. You look at, I think Brady Cook can turn it up a notch. And he played damn well last year, but he can turn it up a notch with the best weapon in all of college football. Luther Burden, Theo Weiss is no joke at all himself. I think they're gonna surprise some teams. Alabama, I think, is the trickiest team of it all because it's like, okay, take the coach away. Let's pretend Nick Saban is there, even though we can't, because he's not. But still recruited extremely well. Still able to retain a good portion of those players. Very high return on production and decent return on production and a very high SP plus grade. And you look at Kalen DeBoer and what he's been able to do before then, you were like, yo, this is kind of a good match. Will we see the return of the successes year one? But I think one of the biggest, I think, shots in the arm they're going to get is one, I think they have an upgrade at offensive coordinator. No disrespect to Tommy Reese. I think also we're going to see an upgrade in Jalen Milroe because if you let's be honest, let's be very transparent about it. Alabama had no clue who they wanted playing at quarterback last year, just like Ohio State. They let it bleed into like the first week of the regular season. We're like, yo, who's your quarterback, bro? Like we really couldn't figure that out. So I think Alabama be better than expected. But let's get into these first round games. So who do you think win the Michigan Alabama matchup?
I'm gonna go with Michigan. I think Michigan's O line, like we saw the second half. I think it's just a repeat of the second half.
Mm-hmm.
They the big hog mollies up front take care of it, and they just run it down Bama's defense.
Yeah, I don't think Sharon Moore gets enough credit for how great games he called during Harbaugh's absence. We already know where you stand with Liberty and Oregon. We both stand there. Oregon wins that. Notre Dame and Texas. I think Notre Dame is going to be better than expected if and only if Riley Leonard can stay healthy.
Yes, that's the big if. Because I mean, a lot of people were high on Duke last year too, and then he obviously got injured. So, and I'm pretty sure he got injured and missed a few games the year prior to that too. So that's the big if. In the perfect world, let's say Riley stays healthy versus Texas. I would still, and my wife's going to kill me because she's a huge Notre Dame fan. I'm still going to go with Texas. I think they got better overall athletes.
I agree.
Quinn, I think I love Quinn. But yeah, it's just going to come down to who's putting better people on the field, and Texas's athletes are far superior.
So, Athlon Sports agree with you. They're going Texas. I think Mike Denbrock was probably the coordinator hire of the year. Chip Kelly is up there as well. Led in total offense and scoring offense the last 2 years with LSU. Doesn't quite have the same weapons, but I believe his scheme works. Riley Leonard is able to run, not as well as Jaden Daniels, but he's able to run the rock and he's able to pass the rock. So I I think it's kind of a wait and see thing for Notre Dame, but I think this game's going to be a closer battle than expected. And I think we're both with Ole Miss over Penn State. But you're kind of high on Penn State. You do expect Penn State in the playoff this year, or am I wrong?
They're the fringe where it could be them or it could be Iowa, like I said, or maybe even Washington. I think it's like a 3-team race for that last Big Ten spot.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question. Off script again. My apologies.
Nope.
So,
sorry.
Do you anticipate that? Of course, we have the automatic bids, but do you anticipate the at-large bids other than that G5 team being all from the SEC and the Big Ten?
Yes.
Does ACC get more than one team? I don't think so. Does Big 12 get more than one team? I think that I don't think
that
their
may
resume
be the only conference that could.
Yeah.
And it could be Arizona and Utah sort of thing. But if they do end up getting it, they're going to be like the 11 seed. But yeah, it's going to be all Big Ten, SEC in my mind.
So SEC has the top 9 toughest schedules. Top 8, I'm sorry. And number 9, surprisingly, is Georgia Tech, right? And then you got an SEC run again. And it's like, Big 12 or the Big 10 don't have a top 10 strength of schedule. And, I think some of that plays a role when we look at it later in the season. But I agree with you. I think Notre Dame may be the anomaly. I think ACC only gets one. I think Big 12 only gets one. But there are some teams in the Big 12 that I really like. And I think that Big 12 is up for the taking. I will state if Matt Campbell could just figure it out, like fully figure it out, maybe. But Oklahoma State is a team that's growing on me. With their returning production, they got an easier schedule.
The only thing is everyone's going to crowd the box.
They are. They're going to have to beat teams passing the rock.
Yeah. And I don't trust Rocco for Iowa State, so.
I like that. That's a great take. 3 teams from the SEC, 3 teams from the Big Ten, 1 team from the ACC. Not bad. Football Frame of Mind podcast. Thank you for joining us. I believe this is your first time commenting in here. We love new commenters. So that's the first round. Let's get into the second round games. Now, quarterfinals. So what Athlon Sports had, we already know what we have. Athlon Sports had Alabama versus Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. That could potentially be the 3rd time that they played. This is where I start having some issues with the current format of the 12-team playoff. Oregon versus Utah, old Pac-12 battle. That will be in the Fiesta Bowl. Number 6, Texas versus number 3, Florida State in the Peach Bowl. And then number 7, Ole Miss versus number 2, Ohio State Rose Bowl. So we'll do it strictly off of what Athlon Sports did. Who do you have winning these games?
So first off, I'm going to go with Georgia over Bama. Secondly, Oregon, Utah. This may be actually, if it played out this way, one of the best games of the whole
it will be.
Playoff. I love Utah's coach. But I think with Johnson and Stewart, if healthy, I think Oregon may be a little bit faster than Utah. So I'm going to give Oregon the edge there.
And Tyson Boy is figuring it out. He's really figuring it out. So, yeah, I agree.
Texas, Florida State. I think this one is going to be a little bit more lopsided. I'm going to have to go with Texas again, just athletes-wise. I don't trust DJU as much as I should probably.
No, it's a fair assessment. I asked a similar question earlier with Jalen. Same exact thing.
And
then, my apologies.
Nope, you're fine. Ole Miss, Ohio State, like this could be the de facto championship game right here. Like,
yo, think about
the fact that it's
in
the granddaddy of them all in the Rose Bowl. If this played out right here,
yeah, come on,
this
bro.
This is like movie script written.
It would be.
This could be like one of those games. What was it where it was Penn State USC a couple years ago in the Rose Bowl where it was like 49-56, just shoot out the entire game. And I would love every second of that. I wouldn't care if there was defense played or not, as long as it was just scoring nonstop. So, I mean, if it played out like this would probably be my favorite game of the entire playoffs.
I agree. That'll be a great game. You think about the Lane Kiffin versus Kenshawn Junkins. We know something was there. We don't know exactly what was there. Like I said, we know something was there. So I think there'll be a little bit of yapping for the game next week. So let's get to the semifinals. And of course, it's the Athlon Sports. I want to continue to say that. Semifinals, they had Oregon versus Georgia in the Orange Bowl, and number 6 Texas versus number 2 Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, before we jump into that football frame of mind, yeah,
I'll bring that
there's
back up.
a lot of NFL money on the field
Yeah, I love that statement.
anytime Bama Georgia plays. So semifinals, Oregon versus Georgia. This one I think could be sneaky close. Like you said, Oregon's coming a couple years off of one of the best O lines in the country. Um,
Mm,
if they can replicate that, they may actually hold a fighting chance against Georgia. They got speed that could play on the outside, make the DBs of Georgia work. But I think it comes down to Georgia's offensive line manhandling Oregon's defensive line.
mm.
Uh, and then with ETN just running the ball uh, 18, 20 times on a game like this, I'd have to go with Georgia on this. And then Texas, Ohio State, man, this one could be a good game. I mean, you got Will Howard versus Ewers again. So automatically right there, the nod would go to Texas. But
Mm.
Ohio State's defense, I think, would be the difference maker, especially their secondary, like you said, locking down any sort of weapons Texas had. So I would have to give it to Athlon. Ohio State would win that matchup in my mind too.
Oregon Georgia game is really like, what has Dan Lanning learned in this process since that first matchup was abysmal.
Yeah,
Like it was really bad. So what type of intel has he collected? What has he been able to do to be ready for this moment where he gets to go up against, his sensei, and will he be able to beat him? But I have to agree with you, that will give us an Ohio State Georgia national championship. If Georgia won, that'll be 3 out of 4 years. How do you like that game? And is this the best two teams in the national championship in your opinion?
I like the game. Is it the best two teams? I don't think so.
Okay.
I said earlier, Ole Miss Ohio State would
Almost.
be the de facto national championship in my mind.
Okay.
This one really comes down to, I think, who's playing quarterback for Ohio State at this point in the season. If it's
Great
Will
point.
How, well, that and the kind of offense they run,
Hmm.
which I think will play a huge factor in Ohio State's season. If it's Will Howard and kind of Marcus Mariota Oregon offense, then okay. If it's new Chip Kelly and the offense he ran at UCLA, I feel Sayan would be the better quarterback in that kind of offense.
Hmm.
Um, but coming down to it, I think it's really going to be Ohio State's D line versus Georgia's O line is the deciding factor. I love Jack Sawyer. I love JT for Ohio State.
Hmm.
Um, but Georgia's got some dogs on the bookends.
They do.
So I mean, this one would just be tough to pick. I think deep down though, I would have to probably go with Georgia beating Ohio State. As much as it hurts to say living in Ohio, I would probably have to go with Georgia.
That I think this is a tough one. I like on paper. I love Ohio State. On paper, I
Yep.
think the biggest difference is getting Chip Kelly at offensive coordinator. Ron Day will have somebody that he respects and someone that he sees as a peer, and not someone that he sees like beneath him, on the chain. So it'll be interesting. I think Chip Kelly will scheme up greatly for Ohio State. I think this is the most weapons he might have ever had on the outside as a as
Yeah.
a as a head coach. He's always had the backs and had dynamic quarterbacks, but the weapons he have on the outside are phenomenal. You look at Georgia, and I think what separates Georgia's just from a lot of programs is what Kirby Smart has been able to install. Those school sessions that they do down in Georgia with that peer-to-peer accountability, and it's not just on the field stuff, it's off the field stuff as well. When you have leaders in a room and I can look at you as a man and say how I'm really feeling, and it's not toxic, it's in a transparent manner, and you're able to have open discussions so we can all grow individually. When you have leaders on your team holding people accountable, having these goal sessions, you're thinking about what's next, whether that's the NFL and the steps that it takes to get to the NFL, or if you're thinking about joining business and what it takes to be successful in corporate America. That's what separates Georgia from a lot of programs. So just looking at that, look at the coaching edge. I give the head coaching edge to Georgia, but I would give the coordinator edge to certainly Ohio State. I like Chip Kelly more than I like Mike Bobo. So it'll be an interesting game. My heart wants to say Ohio State, but with everything I just named, I have to go with Georgia just because the schedule that they face, the teams that they face, not that Ohio State don't face the same quality of teams. It's just different in the SEC. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I would have to agree 100%. And like as an outside party looking in, I feel like that's what Ohio State has been lacking is that accountability since Urban left. Like they've been kind of able to ride the coattails, sustain their success, but just like I said, from the outside looking in, that accountability of your teammates like that, it seems to be kind of missing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I heard Steve Spurrier say it about Billy Napier, and I'm going to say the same thing about Ryan Day. He needs to tidy up. This is the year to tidy it up. There's no excuses. There are so many teams that eliminated all excuses. Miami is one of those teams. It's time. It's time, Mario Cristobal. You got to get it. It has to happen this year. It just has to happen. Same thing with Ryan Day. It has to happen. You guys have eliminated all excuses. Your programs have poured in a lot of money financial to make sure you guys have the best rosters possible. It's time to execute now. So no more excuses. D, now tell them a little bit about what you do on the Hawks Nest podcast and let them know where they can find you.
Yeah. So on Twitter, I'm DNowCFB. I do Debbie Darlings every Tuesday, Thursday with our guy Nino. I'm going to be starting up Hawks Nest, Iowa football-based TV show or podcast show here on YouTube. Probably starting that after the holidays. Once
Super
fall camps really start. I'm pretty excited about Iowa this year, if you can't tell from some of my takes. So yeah.
As I always like to say, there are no more victories in a sport that survive in advance. That's why college football has the greatest regular season. And until next time, y'all already know what it is. This is a great show, brother. I appreciate you. What's up? Take care. Yes, sir. Today I am the governor of college football. Yes, sir. The mayor of college football, a.k.a. Downtown Nino Brown. Yes, sir.